can't believe we're here in 2025 still talking about the stigma around mental health, but it's a real thing, and it causes people to ignore the signs. So we're talking about mental health as a whole, but you were mentioning before we were on camera that mental health is health. Dive into that a little bit, because that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, absolutely. We really prioritize our physical health. You know, we prioritize fitness and what we eat, and what we think and how we feel is equally important. And we actually know that mental health can influence our bodies. It can make us more suggestible to illness, disease, and when untreated, things like depression, anxiety, substance abuse can have some really dire consequences.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept that I hadn't thought of until you said it, that there's so much physical health. There's so much money annually spent on what we do to maintain our physical health that we forget about the mental health side, when really if we focus on the mental health side, it might help everything else as we're going along.
Absolutely. You know, mental health drives motivation, sleep, energy level, relationships, and I really encourage people to prioritize their mental health. And actually, nationally, there's a huge push for that. Ever since COVID, when we all became very much aware of mental health and loneliness and changes in life, there's really been a push to accept our mental health, to seek treatment for it, and to provide safe spaces for people to talk about it.
Glad you brought that up, because mental health, there's a stigma. I can't believe we're here in 2025 still talking about the stigma around mental health, but it's a real thing, and it causes people to ignore the signs.
It's a very real thing.
You know, you hear this phrase a lot, it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
And I feel like that helps me to understand that it's part of life. Like, you're not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to be in the best mood, and it's okay to not be okay. But then when that becomes, you know, more than just a bad day, becomes a bad day, becomes a bad week becomes a bad month, and you can't seem to get out of it, that's when maybe it's time to start asking maybe the professionals for some help, like you mentioned.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of times that's when people come for treatment, when they're most distressed. We actually encourage people to come early on. And a lot of people actually come for therapy just for support in life, or to be better at something they're already doing, or to become a better parent. Or I had a client last week that was talking about her family history of mental illness. And she wasn't sure if she had an issue, but she knew people in her family did, and she was trying to be proactive. And I would love to see so much more of that. Think of how different the world would be if we were more proactive about mental health, not just reactive.